Welcome back. In this podcast, we will talk about paradigms. Those niggling little voices of fear and limitation that try to keep us where we are in our comfort zone. So briefly stated, a paradigm is a set of beliefs, ideas, and values about how we view ourselves and our world. And for our purposes, we think of paradigms in this way. We also call them limiting beliefs, just so you know. So how do they show up? How do paradigms show up for most people? They show up in three ways. The first way is distraction. Squirrel. Seriously. Distraction is where we're afraid to do something, so we think of something else that really we should do instead of doing what we're afraid of. This might look like checking your email instead of making your business calls. It may be doing the laundry before you go and do groceries. Not that you'd be scared to do groceries. Well, you might be scared to do groceries, especially with where we are right now in the pandemic. But that's distraction. Dissuasion, that's where we hear these voices that say things to us like, what are you thinking? Who do you think you are? Who's going to listen to you if you start a coaching business? Who do you think you are thinking that you can go out dating? Who do you think you are going out there trying to find a job and make more money than you're already making? Don't you think you're about at the top of where you should be? That's the voice of a paradigm. So, those nasty little devils whispering in our ear that tell us why we can't, that want us to play small. And they limit us because we believe them. But here's the thing. They can be interrupted with a brief, simple exercise that we'll talk about in just a little bit. But first, we have to be aware that we even have these paradigms. So start listening to how you're thinking. Start listening to when those voices show up and you feel constricted or anxious. Awareness is key here. We have to be aware that we have these little voices that we need to get rid of before we can get rid of them. So in podcast number 1, in the 3 keys to unlocking your potential, the third key that we talk about, embracing your fear, talks a little bit about paradigms as well. So you may want to go back and give that a listen. So Bob Proctor, who we talked about briefly in that first podcast, the world-renowned life coach, transformational speaker, author, he says this: success is 5% strategy and 95% mindset. 95%. So we want to get it right? He also says this: to create wealth in your life, whatever wealth is to you, maybe it's success, there are 2 things you have to know. The first is where you're at, and the second is where you want to go. Because here's the thing, a sailboat with no destination in mind has no favorable wind. So we're going to shift a little bit and delve in to changing our mindset from just a little bit different of a perspective, from a spiritual perspective, if you will. And this might be new material for some of you out there, and I invite you to contact me if I can help you in any way to understand this better. But what I'd love for you to do is open your mind and your heart and listen. And if you're open and willing to do that, touch your heart, say, I'm in. I'm in. So first, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So imagine the spiritual side of yourself as being a vertical line. Just imagine that vertical line. It's infinite. It has no beginning and no end. Then imagine a horizontal line intersecting that. And that is our human side that is finite. And on the left of that line is our birth date. And on the right side of that line, out to the right, hopefully way out there to the right, is our death date. Where the two intersect is the present moment. The moment in which we are actually breathing. And it is the infinite experience of our physical nature at this point. It's the part of us that we have access to and we can access now. It's the point of our intuition. It's the place where we can access answers from the infinite side of our nature. There's a place in the Old Testament in 1 Kings where it says that God speaks to Elijah in the still small voice. That still small voice is that intersection. Proverbs 31 says it this way: if there is a stillness and a quiet in our hearts, we can hear the divine's whisper there. And then the Dalai Lama says, the still small voice inside of us is as loud as our willingness to listen. So we access this point of power, the intersection of the divine and the human nature, where those come together. We access that by our breath. I know, simple. So why does this even matter to us? It matters because if we change our breathing, we can take ourselves out of the condition-driven, sympathetic nervous system, the fight, flight, or freeze, where nothing serves us. We can't do anything except the fight, flight, or freeze in that space. It takes us out of that, the changing of the breath. And it pulls us into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest, digest, and create. And it's here we can create. And it's here that we can listen and actually hear the still small voice. And again, we only know to do this by having an awareness of how we're feeling in that moment. Notice what you're noticing. And only then do we know to do something, to change the paradigm and change our breath and access our power. So here's the steps that you want to take for interrupting a paradigm or busting one. I want you to find a quiet space and sit in a chair with your feet touching the ground as if that were Mother Earth, and centering yourself in spiritual groundedness by doing that. And lay your hands softly with open palms up in your lap. And if you're not driving, close your eyes. Your back is straight, yet relaxed. I want you to slowly breathe in through your nose and then out through your lips, pursed lips, as if you're gently blowing out a candle. Repeat this a few times, and you will actually feel the calming of your body and your mind. And imagine that point of power that's inside you at the intersection of your spiritual and human essence. Now, imagine that paradigm. Acknowledge it, thank it, and release it, letting it know you no longer need it. And it's been said that in nature abhors a vacuum. And so does our subconscious mind. So let us now fill that vacant spot where the paradigm sat. Replace the paradigm by asking yourself this question: what would I love? What would I love? And put an image of that into this space. Maybe it's from your vision you have created or started to create from the first podcast. Now, ask your divine self, your intuition, the universe, what is one thing I can do to move myself in the direction of what I would love, of my dream? Then listen for the answer. Listen for the still, small voice. It's here where we can be open and receptive to the universe's first currency, which, by the way, is not money, but ideas. The universe's first currency is ideas. And after you've completed this meditation exercise, write down the ideas that came to you, even if they sound weird or they don't make sense. Write them down. Choose the one that has the most electricity to it, the yes factor, the one that resonates the most with you at this moment. And take that idea, that action step, and commit it to your calendar. And then do it. Take the step. This grounds in your subconscious that you're serious about your vision. And the next time that you access your point of power, your divine, the universe, the still small voice, it will be easier to hear. And the paradigm that once seemed so loud and powerful gets quieter and quieter as you keep a laser focus on the dream that replaced it and the action steps you're taking in its direction. So I wanted to share with you a couple of stories that might help you with this lesson a bit. The first one is about a man named Anthony Robles. His dream was to become a champion wrestler. The amazing part of his dream, his story, was that he only had one leg. So if anyone ever had license to listen to and follow the paradigms of never being able to wrestle, much less win any contests, it probably would have been him. But he didn't listen. Not only did he become a wrestler, but in college, in 2011, he won the Wrestling National Championship for Arizona State University. He overcame his fears and his limiting beliefs. And now he's an analyst for ESPN and the Pac-12 network. So you might relate to my story a little bit. Early on in my coaching career, I was making calls to people that I knew, offering them a session with me to talk about goals and struggles, and I was scared to do this. It felt like push energy. It felt constrictive instead of expansive and flowing and empowering. So I did the breath exercise myself. And I replaced my fear and the paradigm of I'm not enough with what would I love. And it was simple. I wanted to serve and to offer something of value to people. And the next thing I heard when I asked the question was this: then serve. Come from contribution. You are the guide for me. I am their power. Show them the way. And what came to me next were the words to convey this to those I called, and a directive of how to implement my action plan. And after that, it was easy. There's a saying that if the dream is desired enough with laser focus, the facts don't count. And you know what? Neither do the paradigms. So breathe into your power and ask yourself, what would I love? Follow your dreams. They know the way. I am Dawn Matthis, and this has been To Your Greatness. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.